Social media uses intermittent reinforcement patterns to keep us hooked. Their algorithms are obscure and change patterns all the time. They resemble capricious, moody lovers, satisfying our fundamental needs for attention, care, affection, or validation in inconsistent ways. We never know if they will reward or punish us the next moment. They deliberately cultivate inconsistency to keep us hooked. That's the behavior of someone with antisocial personality disorder. Let me repeat that. It's antisocial, not social. And unfortunately, this behavior is also as addictive as heroin and equally as detrimental. Welcome back to Code Red, Technology, Madness, and the Future of Humanity. My name is Ursula Esin. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Swan in beautiful Vienna, Austria. And it is my pleasure to co-host this podcast with Silicon Valley-based inventor, entrepreneur, and philosopher Chris Kalaboukis. Chris was present during the early years of Twitter, Facebook, Yahoo, and Co., right where they originated, allowing him to report to us right from the front lines of social media in Silicon Valley. Welcome, Chris, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is great. I was involved in a number of those tech companies, but not the biggest contributor to the problem, which is Facebook, of course. But I know a lot of people who work at Facebook, and it's an interesting place. Let me just say.
We will talk more about that, I hope. But you are right on the front lines. You saw it like first row, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm very curious what you think about it.
Well, so you're absolutely right in your description, right? And I think we were talking before about how it's a game. It's like a slot machine. It's like a I think one of the things you mentioned, which sort of twigged on me, is that it's almost like being a spouse or a friend of an abusive person, right? Who's
Yes,
constantly
abusive.
changing the way they act based on the way you act. Because a lot of times when people are in relationships, they're like, okay, if I act a certain way, then my partner will act a certain way. But if that partner continuously changes the way they act based on the way you act, then there's no way to detect it. There's no way to determine it. And this is the same way slot machines work. This is the same way these games work. And this is the same way social media works. Social media rewards you intermittently. You have no idea what kind of reward you're going to get. You'll do one thing for a while and you get awarded, and then that stops. And it's just done to continuously suck you in and addict you to the process. And the thing that I think it's most like, it literally is like a drug. It's almost as bad as cocaine or fentanyl or any of those other drugs. But the difference between that and these other drugs is that these other drugs, they have a single effect, right? They have a single effect and they run through your system and they're done. Whereas with this, every time you use the system, it learns how to addict you more. And it changes itself and addicts you more. So imagine a chemical drug that you inject into your system, and every time you use it, it figures out how to be more addictive, and it changes its chemical composition to make you more addicted to it. Something like that would be banned in a second, but not social media, because that's what we have. We have an electronic version of this constantly changing, super addictive drug that we can't stop looking at.
You're absolutely right. There was a very interesting experiment back in the 1950s. Scientists conducted an experiment with rats. They put the rats in a cage with a lever. Every time the rats gave the lever a push, they got a food treat in return. You can guess what happened next. The rats, like Pavlov's dogs, figured it out pretty quickly. They pressed the lever whenever they wanted a snack. Life was good in the rat world. But then one day the food pellets stopped coming and the rats got frustrated. They ditched the lever in a hurry. Now the scientists got curious. What if they switched things up and gave the rats rewards in a totally random way? They figured the rats would get frustrated again. But guess what? The opposite happened. The rats went all in, pressing the lever like there was no tomorrow. Even when the food supply completely vanished, now the rats kept going and even tossed sleep, food, and grooming out the window. All they cared about was pressing that lever, hoping it would eventually give them another pellet. The fancy term for this mechanism is intermittent reinforcement. It resembles the concept behind a slot machine, as you already mentioned, and it's a powerful way to mess with someone's head. It's as addictive as heroin and equally as detrimental. Now let's switch gears and talk about social media again. Social media plays exactly the same game with us to keep us hooked. What's your own experience with that, and how did you perceive the emergence of these mechanisms in the early days of social media, Chris?
Well, what was really interesting, I was one of the very, very first users of Twitter. And
Yes.
it was in 2007. It just came out. And the interesting part about it is that it was actually a spin out. It was a kind of a skunkworks project by a company called Odeo, which did podcasting. And they wanted to create a
Oh.
tool which allowed podcasters to send text messages to a podcaster's audience saying, hey, there's a new episode that's come up. So it was just something that they did in their spare time, thinking this would really help our podcasters. And at the time, it was really limited. It was no links, just text, 160 characters. So the minimal thing that an SMS could do. And we were trying to figure out, what can this thing do? What could we do with this thing? We tried to experiment with it. We tried using it for email. I thought, wouldn't it be great if we use this for email instead? Because it would force people to keep things brief, because you
Mhm.
can be really long-winded in emails. And this is one of the great examples of an innovation that really didn't have a purpose when it first came out. It's like the market sort of created the purpose around it. And so something like Facebook was actually patterned after MySpace. So there was social media before Facebook, and there was social media before Twitter, but Twitter was initially started as sort of a communications mechanism, and then it became social media. It sort of fell into that space because it was easy. There was a big huge market for it. And Twitter has become just as addictive, or now X, I guess, as all of these other social media. And most of it is it's due to the business model, right? I mean, the thing with Twitter, when it first came out, it had no business model. They had no idea how to monetize it. And it was the same with Facebook. What's the business model? You get these people connected. And this is one of the issues with sort of almost any startup, is especially these ones in Silicon Valley, the ones that are founded on VC money. So they go out, they come up with a great idea, right? So it's not a bad idea. The initial concept is good. So the initial concept is connecting people together, right? It's allowing
Right.
people to communicate with each other. Great concept. And people love that. I mean, when Facebook came out, it was great being able to reconnect with old friends, being able to reconnect with your high school friends, etc. People you'd never spoken to in forever. You could have this sort of light touches between them, and they would bring things back from your memories, and it would be really, really, really useful and helpful to a lot of people. It was great. But the problem is that none of these things had a business model. And when the VC money starts running out, they scramble for a
Exactly.
business model.
Exactly. Yes.
So the business model they decided to settle on was advertising. And the moment you settle on an advertising business model, it's all about the eyeballs. The more people you can get looking at the ads, the more ads you can sell, and the more money you can make, right? And that's the same
Right.
thing. It happened to Google, it happened to Facebook, it happened to Twitter, it happened to all of these tech companies and social media. The moment they picked the advertising business model as their business model, this is how they were going to make money. They needed eyeballs. And the way to keep your eyeballs on your site is to get them addicted to coming back over and over and over and over again. Right. So the advertising business model forces, like, the best way to get best way to make money, a lot of money in ads, is to force people to go see your ads. And how do you get people to watch your ads? You keep them on the app 24/7. So the more addictive you, and so here we have all these big brains, these super intelligent people, super intelligent AI, and the problems they're trying to solve, they're not trying to solve world peace or world hunger or poverty or any of those big problems that human beings have. They're trying to figure out how to get us to look at these things more more often. I find it
Exactly.
insane.
That's exactly right. And as long as this business model remains unchanged, you can bet that social media companies have a strong incentive to keep us hooked to their screens and not go out with friends to socialize in real life, right?
Exactly. Exactly, and it has real world implications, right? When you have people
Right.
so addicted to their phones that they don't stop at stop signs. They're reading their phones as they're
Oh my
driving
God.
on the freeway. I mean, I
Wow.
have seen this. I mean,
Really? Wow.
it's insane.
That's
It's like,
dangerous, people. Don't do it.
absolutely don't do that.
Please.
It's like, put the phone down, damn it. See, and the
Yeah.
thing is that's interesting is that the people who those phones know how fast they're going. The phones know that they're going at 60 miles an hour. They're going at a certain speed. These companies could shut down their phones. They could completely shut down the phone if it goes at a certain speed, so that drivers wouldn't be tempted to look at them. But do they do that? No.
So let's talk about potential future scenarios for social media. I sat down with communication students at the University of Vienna and they shared their thoughts on the future of social media with me. They expressed limited optimism about the future, with some even voicing reluctance to think about the future at all. What would you wish for the future of social media, Chris? I know you're an optimist. What do you see in the future that makes you so unwaveringly optimistic?
Well, it's back to what I was saying about the business model, is that we have to somehow step away from the ad-based business model, because there are so many positive things about social media. So many positive
Mm,
things. A lot of times I read breaking news on X or Twitter before anywhere else. So human beings out in the field. I mean, that was the original vision of Twitter, was human beings out in the field seeing something, observing it, and being able to disseminate it
mm.
to everybody all at once. So
Citizen
it's
journalists.
it's the ultimate, yeah, it's the ultimate communication mechanism for person to person communications. So that has a lot of value. Or
Mm,
Facebook, where you're reconnecting with old friends, we're connecting with people. People sell things on Facebook, people have meetups on Facebook. For the social piece of it is amazing and useful and fantastic. And I've always believed that one of the biggest strengths of the internet is the ability to connect every human being with every other human being. If we could actually connect every human being with every other human being, many of the disputes that we have between us will probably disappear, because a lot of us want the exact same things. The problem is that we have these
we
moderators in
don't know it.
between us
Yes, we
that
don't
are
know it.
changing the message or not allowing
Mm,
messages to get out. And
right,
sometimes it's
right.
social media's company's fault, because they want to run more ads, they want to make us more addictive. But
Mm,
there are components that are good, right? There's things that are
absolutely.
amazing and powerful and totally beneficial to humanity in social media. But then there's these bad parts of it which are completely tied to the business model. So if there was some way for, I don't know, Facebook or Twitter or some of these other companies to actually have paid versions where the ads just disappear and we don't force people to come back to look at this ad or look at that ad, maybe that would be helpful. Maybe there's a way of doing that. I mean, the problem is, for us as humans, we value our time, our money more than our time.
Mm,
So to tear us away between a model that seems free, because nothing's free, to a model that costs money is going to be incredibly difficult. And we've already been trained that free
that
is good.
everything is free. Yes. Yes.
And
Nobody pays for an app or anything. Everything
yeah,
has to be free. And
if
of
I were
course,
to
I
start a
also tell my
non-addictive,
students, if it's free, you are the product,
that's right,
actually.
it's you
Yeah.
who are being sold to the advertisers.
Exactly, and your time is valuable. And I usually say I think it's very good to think about it like that. Use social media in a professional way, not in a private way. Meet your friends privately in real in-person meetings, that
Yeah.
existed someday. In ancient times we had this in-person meetings, and do this with your friends. Use social media for professional gains, to bring your message out, to advertise your business, and always produce more than you consume. Then you have a net positive.
Yep. No,
I think
absolutely.
you,
And
you can beat them this way.
Yeah.
then they
And
are
I
not
think that
controlling you. You are controlling them.
right, but the problem is that we still have to, and this is a problem. It's not just social media; it's tech companies in general.
Mm,
We have, I was mentioning before about the person to person contact, right? Between humans, there's the moderators or the mediators. And the mediators could be social media, the mediators could be Google, it could be DuckDuckGo, it could be anything. So in the early days of the internet, it was a lot easier for people to find each other, to connect
mm,
to things that they're interested in. And what's happened is that that model is exploded because now we have this mediator class, which completely controls the communications between individuals. And this mediator class enforces whether you're allowed to be seen or not by other people. So if I
that's
knew
right.
you directly, I could
Mm,
talk to you directly, I could email you directly, I could chat with you
mm.
directly. But if I didn't know you directly, then I would have to sort of send my message out into the world to
And
try and
just
connect with
hope.
people.
Yes.
Exactly. And the
Mm,
mediators own this channel. And
that's
I
right.
think I read an article a while back which says that most people experience the internet through 5 different websites. And I'm going, if people only experience the internet through 5 different websites, then these 5 different websites basically control the internet. And if you don't dance to their tune,
Mm,
you are invisible. So even as a business person, and that's the
right.
key problem, is that on the social side, I can understand if you want to connect with people, you can connect with people directly. But
Mm.
as a business person, you have to get your message out. And getting your message out is either going to
Becomes more
cost you a
difficult.
lot of time,
Or
and you have
money.
to dance to their tune, or you have to spend a lot of money. And that's what the issue with these social media companies is that they've got us stuck. We can't do anything about it. It's like we don't want to be addicted and use them, but at the same
Mm,
time we have to get our message out. So it's a
right.
conundrum. There's got to be a better way, and nobody's solved it yet.
That's right. Let's come back to my chat with the students. Their primary concern also revolved around this topic. The first concern was about the persistence or disruption of social media monopolies. Will they be continued or smashed? And what's going to happen with the described reward system? Will it be expanded or abolished? So, together, we've come up with 4 different scenarios. I will describe each. I will describe each of these scenarios and ask you for your opinion. Scenario number 1: the monopolies lose attraction. Imagine social media losing its addictive charm. The monopolies, the social media behemoths, are still around, but the tricky reward system that keeps us guessing, it's gone. People start breaking free from the social media addiction and get back to real world connections. Monopolized social media loses their junkies as they begin to heal and set themselves free. Do you think that's realistic, Chris?
No, sorry.
No.
And the reason why I think it's realistic is because they just have
Not
too
realistic.
much horsepower against us. It's the
Mhm.
kind of thing I was talking about with personal AI. It's like the biggest problem with AI today, and in fact, a lot of what's happening is that a lot of these things lie in major corporations. So if you're talking to your Alexa, Amazon knows what you're doing. If you're talking to your Google Assistant, if Siri knows Apple knows
Get
what Siri is.
Alexa out of the house
Exactly.
immediately.
So all of these big companies control everything,
Mm.
right? And there's nothing on our side. There's nothing us poor human beings can do to combat that. So it's like we almost need a personal technology or personal software or personal AI that's on our side that can
Mm.
actually do the negotiations with their side, because
Oh,
we're just poor humans. I mean, there are there are so many people, there is so much technology, there is so much AI stacked against us on that side that it takes a ridiculously strong human being to be able to fight that, because they have so much power on their side. So what we need power on our side. We need our
right.
own negotiator, because right now we're
Mm.
just talking to their side and we're
Mm.
negotiating with their side, but we don't have a negotiator on our side to help us negotiate with their side. So that's
Can
why
AI
I'm a bit.
help us? Can
Yeah,
AI be on our side? How
yeah,
how would
exactly.
that look like? What would that
So
look like?
so I don't know if you've read recently, but so there's this tiff between Elon Musk and Sam Altman
Yes.
about OpenAI, and how he's saying, or Elon is saying, that OpenAI is not open, and
Right.
he's going to be
Which is
releasing Grok.
he's right about that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so he's going to be releasing Grok code into the world, and there are other open source AI models that can actually almost run on these things, almost. And when you get so open
AI
source
on
AI
your phone.
models that can run on your
Mhm.
phone, and this can do your social media for you. See, that's the key. The key is for you to tell your personal AI, "Hey, personal AI, this is what I want you to do on social media." So you what's the word? You disconnect yourself directly from the social media, and you have your AI do your social media for you. So your
Hmm.
AI is filtering the social media to you through itself. And the AI is on your side. It'll always negotiate for your side. Any of this addictive stuff will be blocked by the AI, because it's AI talking to AI, and the AI won't allow the addictive stuff through to you, but it will filter through the stuff you want to see. I think that's where the future is that we need to build that interface, because these tech companies, they're not going to stop. They're going to make it
Right.
more and more and
Right.
more addictive,
Right.
because
Right.
they're still making money off of us.
That's right. But that's a very good thought to have AI help us and be on our side. It should be on our side, right? Let's make it ours.
Well,
Let's come
supposedly
to
it's us, so we should allow it to help us.
yes, yes, it should be our friend, our ally
Yeah.
against these big companies. Scenario number 2, addicted rats in a cage. Now picture a world where people are like addicted rats in a cage hooked on social media.
That's
The
us
reward
right now.
system Exactly. The reward system cranks up the unpredictability, making people even more addicted. Monopolized structures stick around, and social media users become like lab rats, fixated on a lever that only sometimes rewards them. They are so caught up that they neglect themselves and their real connections with other people. Where will this end, Chris?
I foresee a huge number of people just falling into
Hmm.
that world, and making it their world. I mean, do you remember Second Life, and when these new sort of virtual worlds came out, and people would just
Yes.
fall into them, and they would become so addicted to them. And the problem, I think
Oh,
the
really?
biggest.
I know no one who got addicted. We all tried it and it was so boring that we just
Well,
left.
see, it depends on the life you're in your IRL. Like, what do you like? What is your
Mm,
life like in real life? If your
mm.
life, it's kind of like in the movie Ready Player One. So if you remember the movie Ready
Which
Player
movie
One,
was that?
Ready Player One, did you see that movie?
No, no.
Okay.
Maybe
So
explain what.
it's set in the future, and there's these virtual reality goggles very similar to the Apple Vision Pro, where
Mhm.
everybody lives in this virtual world, because the real world is so horrible, right? So the
Mm,
real world is
right.
horrible, so they start living in the virtual world. And the thing is that with COVID and all these things have driven a lot more people to become introverted and stay at home and experience the world through the screens or through goggles. And what's happening is that people, it's like you were saying before, it's like, if you, in that same experiment, I think it might be the same experiment, is that if you took two rats and you give them one the random rat and the other one where if they actually could feel that they had control over the pellet, that was the happiest rat. The happiest rat was the one that said, every time I hit the lever, I get a pellet.
Get my
I hit
reward.
the lever, I get a pellet.
Mm,
That's
mm.
the happiest rat was the one that felt it had control over its life. And it's the same with
Right,
humans. If
right.
we humans feel
Absolutely.
like we have
Mm.
control over our life, and things that we do have a result. Like if we do a thing that it gives us a good result, and we get a good result, we're like, yes, things are good. We're happy when good
Yeah.
results come out. And if we don't get good results in real life,
Mm,
maybe we can get good results in virtual life, right? So
mm.
if we can program our virtual life to
Sounds
give us good
sad.
results, we would never want to leave.
That's right. That's right.
It's
But
sad,
is it
but
but
We have
isn't
to
it
improve
all?
our real lives. That's the
That's
key.
correct. And isn't this life always an abusive relation? Isn't this always an abusive relationship in some way? Because you are always dependent on this virtual life, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of like it's just like the Matrix, the movies, right?
Mm,
They didn't know. They had no idea there was a life outside of what they were experiencing. And that's
mm,
what ends up happening. And there's been studies that show that human beings, we're a lot more simple than people think we are. When we watch something on a movie, our brains, our dinosaur brains, think it's actually real. We can't
yes,
differentiate
yes.
reality
Cannot
from
differentiate.
visuals. So if
Right,
you think about it, if I created a virtual world where everything was wonderful and I lived in that everything was wonderful world, my dinosaur brain would think that this was real, right? So
right.
that's how we delude ourselves into thinking that these things are real. And for
Mm,
some people, that is the world they want to live in and you cannot stop them, right? And the
right.
key
You will have people who want that, right?
yeah, yep, you can't
Yes,
stop them.
I think so
And
too. I
but
think
if
so
we
too.
made our
That's
better if we made our real world better,
better.
then people would want to live in it more.
I
And
hope
that's what
for
we need to
that.
strive for.
That's my mission.
Mine too. This is exactly
Let's work together to get to this point. But I
absolutely.
totally agree. We will lose some people probably. I hope
Oh,
none of
there
our
will always
listeners
be
here. I
there will
think
always
that
be
none of
people.
our listeners will be in this category.
No.
Uh,
I
but I
hope not.
Yes, I don't think so. They wouldn't listen to us. But I think there's a real risk that some people would just do that. Let's
Oh yeah.
get to scenario number 3. It's an interesting one. We called it Old Wine in New Bottles. Here's a scenario where it's like a case of deja vu. The old monopolies break up, giving birth to new competing social media platforms. But guess what? They pretty much operate like the old ones, using the same tricks to keep people hooked. It's just more of the same instead of a real social media revolution. What are your thoughts on this scenario, Chris?
That's absolutely going to happen because human
Mm,
beings, this is the thing that I love about people, is that we think we're so evolved. We think we're so advanced. We look back at cave people or Neanderthals or whatever, and we go, oh, we're way ahead of those people. It's like we have not really evolved that much. We haven't.
mm.
Human beings, human
Our
nature,
needs have remained the same
exactly.
since thousands of years.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
yes.
So our human nature, our needs, all of that stuff has not changed. We are not evolved. We have not evolved. And
And that's
any
okay. It's okay. We don't
oh no,
need to
no,
be
it's not a bad
enlightened.
thing. I'm just saying this is what we are, right? We think we're
Yes,
evolved. We think we're
yes.
evolved, but we're not.
Mm, mm,
And as long as the advertising business model stays in fashion and people have to get eyeballs stuck on something to be able to make money, then that's going to continue. So we're going to continue using the same tactics because human beings haven't changed. We
mm,
haven't Since we haven't changed, the same tactics work over and over again. Like that's why I read Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature. Every book he's written digs really deep into human nature and what human nature is like. And the thing that constantly comes out of it over and over again is that it hasn't changed. Roman times, Greek
yes.
times, Babylonian times, even since then, people are the same. We haven't really changed. So if you crack that, if you know how to addict people, then you're going to continue to use those same tactics
Yes.
to addict people, and we're still going to fall for those tactics.
Right.
So why not keep using them, right? So
Exactly.
I completely see that happening.
Okay, so let's be a little bit more optimistic now.
Okay.
Scenario 4 is called liberation. Completely new systems evolve. In this scenario, we have a social media revolution. The old monopolies get dismantled, and the traditional social media reward system is scrapped. Brand new, diverse systems and channels come to life. Social media becomes a place for genuine connection, helping people to flourish and foster their relationships with each other instead of living in a disconnected, inhuman digital world. I'm really curious about what you think about this, Chris. Imagine social platforms that genuinely shake things up, freeing and empowering people instead of controlling them and pulling them into addiction. It's hard to picture that from where we stand now, isn't it?
No, not actually, not at all. It's not.
Oh,
It's
good.
not difficult. And I think that again, I think we go back to because we live in a capitalist society. People need to make
Mm,
money, right? So the at the bottom line of all of this, because somebody could come out with a social media network tomorrow, which can compete with everything, but if it doesn't charge or if it doesn't have advertising, then it's going to die. It's like unsupportable, right?
That's
So
also very important because a lot of the new systems have this fantasy that you could be successful without making a profit because somehow they get the idea that make money is bad and making profit is bad. That's not true. A truly sustainable business has to make profit because then you also foster new solutions. If you make a profit with a solution, you can come up with new solutions, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So we need a different business model, and I think there is a business model out there that will work with this. And funnily enough, my
Tell me.
it's micropayments. It's micropayments. We need to figure
Okay.
out micropayments because this is the thing. It's been around for a long time. Micropayments have been
Mm.
around since before the internet, right? I distinctly remember downloading a software-based digital wallet that was sitting on my desktop, and it would every time I looked at a website, it would charge me like a quarter of a penny or something like that, right? And there were some experiments in that space where when you looked at a website you'd be able to it would be a little meter, and as you went through the website and you looked at the page after page, it would total up how much you were spending by looking at all these websites, and then at the end of the month it would charge a credit card with that cost, right? So you knew exactly how much you had to pay and all that stuff. So a micropayments based model where you're not forcing people to look at ads or dragging people back to look at something is really the way to go. And if we could somehow figure out a way of making micropayments work, and the reason why micropayments don't work is because people don't really care about tiny little payments, right? The
Mm.
people care about big payments. And I mean, I worked at a couple of different banks, and we were talking about that exact same thing. And it's a great technology. It's really interesting, but we haven't figured out a way to make it work. Now, if we had a social media network that worked on micropayments, then maybe that would be a better way. Then we wouldn't have to force people to keep coming back and looking at ads and ads and ads and ads. So, I mean,
And
how much is it?
how much would it cost? How would that really work? Do you
Well, it
think people
depends.
are still ready to pay anything for looking at websites?
Well, the way it has to work is it has to
Mm,
be something that's almost invisible, right? I mean,
mm,
we pay for a lot of stuff invisibly right now, right? I mean, like, how often do people actually look at every single payment that they make every single month, right? Oh, here's my internet bill, here's my cable bill, here's my Netflix bill, so there's tons of money sort of flowing out that's invisible to us. And the only
mm.
way to make it work with micropayments is to make it so semi-invisible. So it tracks how much is going out. So you know how much is going out. And then I think the trick is actually just having a ceiling, right?
Yes,
So say for example,
that's a good
let
point. Mm,
brand new Facebook came out. I don't know,
mm,
call it Lookbook or something like that. So Lookbook comes out, and Lookbook has a completely new business model. No ads, but every time you look at somebody's profile, or every time you communicate with somebody, or every time you post a new meetup or whatever, there's like a little charge,
mm,
right? And at the end of the month, and then this charge is up to $10 a month, right? So if you use Lookbook a lot, then you'll pay $10 a month. If you hardly use Lookbook at all, you'll pay $2 a month or $3 a month or
mm.
something like that. Just a tiny little fee. And the more you use it, the more you have to pay, up to a cap. So you don't have to worry about spending too much, because that was the big problem with a lot of, I mean, we hate unfettered payments, right? It's like,
Right,
oh my god,
that's
I'm
right.
getting a
Yes,
$2,000 bill. What happened? I used it a lot, right?
I think it has to have a cap.
Yeah, so if you had micropayments with a cap and then allowed
Mm,
people to look at it and go, oh, okay, I use this much, I use this much, I use this much,
mm,
And it would have to be something to make it workable for everybody. There would have to be some range. So there would be like a minimum payment of $2 a month or $5 a month, and then a maximum payment of, I don't know, $25 a month or whatever.
Hmm.
And then as long as it was within that range, I think people would be okay with it. And something like that, I think, would work if we could make it happen. So we desperately need to step away from the ad-based business model, because the ad-based business model is the thing that forces this kind of churning of, let's try and get people on it as much as possible. Let's try and get as many eyeballs looking at this thing as much as possible, because the more eyeballs we get on it, the more we get paid. Now, the problem at the same time is that you have to be willing to make less money, right? Because these ad-based business models are enormous. Look at Google. Look at how much Google has made off of ad-based models. It's ridiculous how much money they've made. So I still think there might be a way to put some ad-based in there as well. So maybe you could do a micropayments plus ads, but it would have to be, without the addicting pieces to it. But there are ways of doing it, but we just have to step away from the force. We have to step away from the ad-based business model.
Great. So we already have a new model.
It's been around forever.
Yes, but on the other hand, I think that also it would, of course, destroy a lot of businesses, like all the ad buyers, right? All the
Oh yeah,
media
yeah.
buyers,
I'm
they
not,
would
but
vanish, right?
a lot of, well, I'm not saying that. The thing is that we need a hybrid model, right? Because if we go all in on advertising, which is what we've done today, we get what we get, right? If we can have sort of the base, keep the lights on fees coming out of the micropayment model, and then maybe additional on top of that for ad-based models, maybe that'll work. Or that kind of option where you have, where same as Netflix or YouTube, where if you don't want to watch any more ads, here's a fee, right? Slap a fee on it. I'll stop watching ads, and you'll stop forcing me to come back to the site. So maybe there'll be a non-addictive version of Facebook where you pay, $50 a month for, where you get no, they don't try to pull you back in to look at their ads. I don't know. I mean, the problem is that we're so stuck into the models that we have today, and they make so much money. They're so lucrative that it's almost impossible for us to step out of them. And the
That's
thing
right.
that makes me sad is that we have all of this brain power, all of this technology, all of this AI working towards getting us to look at phones more instead of working on the big problems, right? And
That's
if
exactly
we could
right.
get off the damn phone, is what I have to say. I wish we could.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was a great conversation. Chris, do you have some
Thank you.
final revolutionary thoughts for our audience to take away from it?
Well, revolutionary. I don't have anything revolutionary, but the we do need well, actually we do need startup founders. We need anybody who's thinking about getting into business. We need a new model. We need a new kind of social media. And if we could build it on some other thing, some other business model, something else that takes us away from this addictive thing, it's going to be hard to pull us away. But I think if we had an alternative, I mean, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't go elsewhere, because people go, well, I just get off Facebook, or just get off Twitter, or just get off places. The problem is everybody else is already there. So the network effects force people back on the big platforms. So it's
Right.
very difficult to get off the big platforms until you have a viable option. You've got somewhere else to go, then maybe go there instead. I mean, things like Instagram or TikTok, once something else was out there to go to, then it was easy for people to go to it. So if we could build something else that works on that better model, and give them a place to go, give people a place to go to get the exact same thing that they're getting where they are, minus the addiction, then that would be the way to go.
Thank you very much. I'm currently working on a project where we want to find AI business models mainly for generative AI. And I do a lot of workshops in schools. And I think we're at the very beginning of that. We have to think about new business models. But successful business models very often are actually quite simple and not very
Oh yeah,
complicated.
no.
And That's what I am trying to convey to the students. And maybe I find enough people so that we can start something really new here. But I think this is the thing. We have to change the business models. We have to come up with business models that do not play zero-sum games with their users,
Yeah.
but win-win situations. Let people
Yeah.
flourish. And yeah, that's my current mission. And if anyone in the audience wants to join us with that, please get in touch, contact me. And if you would like my help to develop future scenarios for your business, just toss me an email to office@redswan.at and we'll chat about the options. That's it for today, lovely people. Thank you for watching Code Red Technology, Madness, and the Future of Humanity. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Do you know 3 people who would also enjoy the content? Then share it with them. All episodes are publicly available and free of charge. In any case, let me thank you for taking the time and for your bravery to change the world by starting with yourself. I wish you a good day or a good night, and in any case, a good life. See you next time.